Welcome back to Live Now with Veenu and Chuck Hogan. We want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and her network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Zingo TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 and forward. Live Now is a show all about finding the synergy and body-minded spirit. Please join us as we tackle intense topics of conversation that will spur your mind, steer your soul, and give you some direction. With that said, we are excited to dive into tonight's topic with you. Hello and good evening. We're so excited to be back after the Easter holiday. Chuck, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm wonderful. How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Great topic tonight.
Huge topic tonight. And it's one of those that, especially after introspective holidays, where we're talking about faith, spirituality, connection, and family time. Love seeing all the pics of you all at the beach, by the way. It looked amazing. And this is going to sound maybe a little juvenile, Veenu, but for all of our listeners out there, I believe we've all gone through this question at some point in time. And do you trust yourself? Like, do you really trust yourself? And it seems like a silly question, and one that most people go, well, of course I do. Come on. Don't we all?
Right.
So I'm going to ask you, my dear friend, what do you think the answer is?
I think, first of all, we need to understand, what does trusting ourselves actually mean?
Beautiful. Thank you for, yes, that clarification is imperative, right?
Right.
So let's start with trust. What does it mean to trust someone?
For me, to trust someone, it means that I get absolute certainty in them.
Beautiful.
I have certainty that they're going to follow through, or certainty that I'm going to be safe with them, or certainty that they are going to have my best interest at hand.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm going to ditto what you just said and add authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So when we feel someone's being authentic, we may not even agree with them. Yet in their authenticity, I know who they are and I know where they're going to go. So it's like, okay, I can trust them. I can trust them to be them.
Right.
And it's like, okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. Can you always, if that's the definition, then living in authenticity, are you always authentic with yourself? Because really, that's kind of the measure of self-trust, isn't it?
I'm going to say that for me, and that honesty is one of my top values. I've talked about it. And I will even say there's times that I go against my authenticity. Like, if there is a challenge that comes up and I need to meet that challenge, and I don't have enough confidence in myself or certainty in myself that I'm going to meet it to a certain standard, right, I will shift sometimes who I am to make sure I meet that standard of whoever's judging, liking, needing, whatever that is in that moment. Like, for instance, I will not, but here's what I won't do. I won't go against my core values. Like, I won't lie on something. I'm not going to lie on an application because they want me to be this and I'm not, right, just to be seen. But if I need to present something in a certain way, that's not normally how I present it, I'm okay going against that to shift who I need to be in that moment to present it that way.
Right. And so I would offer this. There's a lot to unpack there. So thank you for that great example. And I would say what we do operationally does not mean we're being inauthentic.
Correct.
It just means that we found another resourceful way to maintain flexibility in delivering an outcome. Mm-hmm. And where I believe the phrase starts to come apart is exactly what you just said. And that's where the defining factor is. When you start to broach your values, when you start to broach your beliefs around who you are and what you really stand for, then I say, yes, you don't trust yourself. Because at that point, you're questioning you. Like, not just a part of you, the core of you. And they go, well, I had to do it in order to survive. And I go, was it life or death? Because that, when you get to that extreme, you will go to a different level of you, a different version of you. And yet it does not mean that you're being inauthentic. It means that you are going to do what you feel is necessary in the moment for the greater good. And this is that mortal toil where, when we say, do you trust yourself? And I would say most of the time, I believe most people do.
Right.
Until they hit that gray area.
I think also we need to go back and start with values first of all, because like being true to yourself, what does that really mean? Like for me, I have certain core values, like you were saying, like honesty and trust for me come hand in hand with not lying. So having to lie about something in order to belong or whatever, that I'm not being true to myself.
Right.
It's not. So finding those things, being disrespectful, like I work with a lot of kids, and like some of the kids I work with, they will compromise who they are because they want to fit in.
Yes.
And so when they do things with their friends, riding around town or whatever, and when we're coaching, I'll say, let me ask you something. Whose idea was that? And they say, oh, it's so and so, but we had a lot of fun. Like they try to defend it because they don't want to admit that they went against themselves. They don't want to admit that they did not stay true to themselves. But as we unpack that, they start to realize like, oh my gosh, like I literally went against who I was just to fit in. And we see that even in adults. Like look at what's going on with different conspiracy theories and with the elections coming up and everything. People are conforming to be something they're not just to fit in to certain standards, ideologies.
Yeah, it's in you again. You bring up so many salient points. So let's go back to the kids for a moment. They have what I will call a rudimentary functionality model, which is there's right and then there's wrong. Now, there's layers of right and wrong, though. They're like going, oh, well, is it really bad? Or is it really, really bad? Or is it just bad?
Right now we have the different bad, really.
Like, burning up in the sun bad, like Icarus bad. And it's like, okay. So does that mean that you have levels of trust within yourself? Or is it that you know at your core, yet this need to belong so far supersedes
right
the need of respect of self? And this is where I'm really getting concerned now, because I'm seeing kind of this throwaway ideology amongst a lot of youth, where they're like going, oh, it doesn't matter anyway, because nobody likes me. And I'm like going, do you like yourself?
Right. Well, it's like one of our listeners, Rudy said, it becomes a criteria, no longer a value or belief.
Yeah, and absolutely. We're trying to meet other people's expectations, and or that our value system is now being postulated by someone else's example.
Mm-hmm.
Like they go, they're cool, i.e., if I act like them, I'll be cool too. And it's like, no. You just haven't had enough life experience to realize they're a user, or that they're living the ultimate entitlement ideology because they never get in trouble. Doesn't make a difference what they do. They're always going to have a scapegoat. And this is that really interesting debacle, because I'm seeing parents now, to your point, there's this polarizing ideology, like my kid's not wrong, the teacher's wrong, the school counselor's wrong, the principal's wrong, the school board. And I'm like, they put them in a different school.
Right.
Homeschool them. If you are that adamant and your value system needs to be so reinforced, and yet I'm going to ask, is it? Is it being enforced? Is it being clarified? Because to your point right now, there's this whole mentality around, and you can talk to so many different people where they go, are you in this group? So you and I being, multiracial, of different nationalities, different countries, and your husband's white, you are Indian descent, I'm Asian, Irish descent, my wife's Nicaraguan descent, so we have Latinos, we have really a broad cross section represented. And I go, awesome. Why? Well, I can say without hesitation, I love you, I love who you are, love your husband, love your kids, and that has nothing to do with color. That has to do with character.
Right.
That has to do with, I know who Veenu Keller and Brian Keller are. I know who you are. I know who your kids are. And when I start to talk about politics or any of these other things, they go, well, oh, you must be this because of your thought process. You're conservative, you're a liberal, you're a progressive. I go, what's with all the labels?
Exactly. It's like, take off the labels. So that's one of the things that I talk about in parenting. It's funny because I literally just saw this today on a Facebook group of conscious parenting. And this parent's like, my kid keeps doing this and I really need to stay as a conscious parent and I don't know what to do. I'm failing as a parent. It was another label that made this lady or whoever already feel they're failing as a parent.
Right.
Because they can't live up to the definition of what this conscious parenting is through their filters. And I always say, and like, this, take off the labels of what parent you are and be the parent your kid needs them to be in that moment. Today, they need you to be this. Tomorrow, they need you to be that. But be flexible so they can trust you.
Yes.
Because as much as our kids say, well, I don't trust, or I don't trust my kid. Parents say that I don't trust my kid. I don't trust them. Guess what? Your kids don't trust you either.
No.
Because it goes both ways.
Well,
and
that's where it comes from, right? I mean, it's like no one feels safe.
Right.
You can sleep with one eye open. Because you don't know. You're like, oh, you better get some WD-40 on those door hinges. Like, no, I don't. No. I'm good.
Yep.
I'm leaving the creaks in the floors. I'm leaving everything the way it is. So here's where, and I thank you for sharing that. There's this misconception that I believe has been brewing for a long time. And that is your values need to be your kids' values. And I go, no. So how do we get past that to get to authenticity? And there's a saying that I borrowed from you many times, and that is, let's get curious and not critical. Because at this point, when you start to ask inquisitive questions, it's no longer about your opinion about what they're experiencing. Right. It's that you're asking questions to understand, appreciate, and connect. And that changes the entire energy and frequency of that engagement.
And I want to just add to what you said. Understanding other people's model of the world means getting into their shoes and seeing it through their filters.
Yes.
And appreciating, even if their filters are different from yours. Even so, especially with our kids, it's so interesting to see when you and I grew up, smoking was the taboo. It was the one thing that sneak and be cool and do it. Smoking is not cigarettes anymore to our teens. It is marijuana. We have got to just come to terms, like the way our parents viewed nicotine, we're viewing marijuana now. We're like, what you want to do? Like, oh, it's cool. It's this, it's that. And again, the values I put in my children do not do. But let's just face it. And this is like one of the things I teach parents. Like when you're parenting from your greatness, you realize that your definition and their definitions don't always have to meet. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to support the choices that they make, but support your child.
Yes.
Because they're creating their own value system. And honestly, it's based off what values did we put on them. But things change because they have an outer influence that's not you all the time anymore.
Oh, you listen. The amount of time that you're in front of your kid by comparison to them being on this thing, and we go, oh, but they need it for communication. I go, there's flip phones, y'all. There's flip phones. They text, they deliver messages, and they are a phone. You know what they don't do? They're not a smart device that has unlimited photography, unlimited streaming capability, and yet this is what they use to do homework. This is what, and I'm like going, okay.
they don't have the influence, right? So my kids have a Gap phone. The Gap phone, literally talk and text.
Yep.
And when my daughter's on her phone, it's literally having conversations, which is so rewarding to hear. They're not texting, they're talking. Like her friends on her phone, even her friends have smartphones. My daughter doesn't. So they're on their phone and they just put it on speaker and they're doing their own thing and they're talking to each other. But it's literally normal conversation. They're not saying BRB, you know,
Right.
they're talking.
And I'm even encouraging my kids now to say, leave audio messages, because there's nothing misconstrued in an audio message. I said, it's your voice, your intonation, your pitch, your energy that's being emoted.
Right.
And they go, well, then why don't I call them? I said, okay, if you're going to do a group call to 40 people, but you can do a group message to 40 people and linguistically share. So that way they really get it. They understand that there's pauses and calm and, you know, a gregarious nature in your voice. Not some automaton or robot or robocall or robotext, or that now you're in a click funnel. And I'm like, for the love of Pete, if I get one more robotic call,
I'm telling you.
And it's waiting for a response from me. And someone was asking me, they go, how do you know it's a robot? I said, because I didn't respond. And it repeated the exact same question in the exact same intent. And I was like, okay, click. Because at some point in time, what I'm looking for is energy.
Right.
And so I'm gonna take this all the way down to like the molecular level so we can blow it back up.
Yeah.
Everyone is an energy hound. Like, we are all addicted to energy. And when we don't experience it, we'll do what we need to do to try and experience it. And I go, okay, great. That also means in your authenticity or lack of, you will, in order for the perception of connection and energetic engagement, even go against your own values and rules.
Yep.
And it's like, holy smokes. Why? Because there's such a need and a desperation for all of us. I have yet to meet a human being yet, unless they're uber high on, you know, the autism scale, that they don't require some engagement with other people. And even those that require engagements, they're just different.
Right.
So what do we do to help create that space and remain curious and not to levy, you know, this weight on people to have to change? Because you said something, and it was about the type of parent. And you said, so when you are being a
conscious parent,
well, so the thing that flowed to me, and thank you for the reminder, is that aren't we looking to create conscious kids and conscious connections? And so how do we do that? Because when we were growing up, to your point, even when my kids were growing up, and I have one who's 17, so she's on that cusp of when, I'll say, the influence of the digital age by comparison to the book level. Because I remember that crossover with Cole and Marina, and he's 23, she's 20, Keely's 17, and now they've gone pretty much digital.
Mm-hmm.
The only time they're going back to books is in college, and I think that's just because they're...
Well, it saves us money on chiropractors now, because I'll tell you about my back from carrying those backpacks with tons of books, bricks. I tell my kids are lucky all the time.
And I think it actually made us stronger.
You know what? I don't doubt it.
You know, so for every effective blaming, you know, I blame you, Sister Fidelma, for my herniated disc. No, I don't. On the other side to that, it's like, man, this woman loved books. But to your point, Veenu, and it really becomes so imperative to understand that when we talk about, do you trust yourself? What if we expanded on that question to say, how can you trust yourself even more? So let's get rid of the presupposition that we don't, and let's add the presupposition that we do. So how can we love and appreciate even more the trust that we have in self? Because we know that if we turn our reticular activating system trying to move away from the things we don't trust,
We're going to turn right back around.
you're like, okay, we need to reshift so that way the blinders are on over here. We're not even looking at all, the
Right.
garbage heap that we left behind us. So what would you say to someone are some great questions or practices that they can start to implement to emote feeling a higher level of self-trust?
I think the first thing is to really recognize even lists. Like I love making lists because I'm able to see it and I'm able to get it out of my brain and on a paper, right?
Like
Of
that.
like, what are some of the things that I do to show that I trust myself?
Yes.
You know, like getting in a car, like that's trust. You trust that you are going to stay in your lane, right? You are going to stay in your lane. So, there it just the little things, the big things. What do you do to trust yourself?
Right.
When you say, like, I'm not going to eat sugar, do you trust yourself enough to not to eat the sugar? When you say you're going to go to the gym, do you trust yourself to get up and keep your commitment to yourself to go to the gym? Like things like that.
Mm.
And then take an inventory of what are you not doing? What is not showing your trust? So you can start working on that to reflect. And the reason why I say make the list of what you do already to show you trust yourself is to let your brain know you're already doing it.
Yeah.
It's not something new. Like you've already done this. We're just going to add to it.
Yeah, it was funny that you say that because I I was hearkening back to like basics, and I go, okay, how do you know you trust yourself to take care of yourself? And I go, well, have you bought body wash, toothpaste, shampoo, deodorant? And they go, oh, but you have to have those. Those are necessities. And I said, are they? Because if you were in the wild, it would be a pond, pine needles, mud. I go, and they go, pine needles? I said, yes, if you brush your teeth with pine needles, you can actually keep your teeth bright, shiny, white, and even things like tea tree oil. Who knew, right? I was like, these things come from, oh yeah,
You go in my backyard and get those pine needles?
sassafras root and all kinds of stuff. And well, I mean, hey, someone needs toilet paper. I'm not saying pine needles makes a good thing. I'm just saying in a pinch. And so one of
Good to know,
the
Chuck.
yeah,
The
yeah.
more you know, guys, the more you know.
Hey, so there's some days I feel like State Farm. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. So boy, we went off the rails real quick. It's so getting back to the basics of understanding that the simple things that you do. Are you eating? Are you sleep? Yeah, are you sleeping? Are you bathing? And people go, is that a thing? And I go, oh, when you've been around someone who does it, it's a thing. And
Mhm.
not only is it disrespectful to yourself, it's disrespectful for many other people that you might be on mass transit with.
Yeah.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying. Your favorite odoriferous fragrance might be musk, not my vibe. Just sharing. Okay. Shaving is another one. Some people just, and it's again, are we being critical? Are we being judgmental? And I go, listen, some people can pull off a scruffy beard. I can't even grow one. So maybe it's in my jealousy that I'm actually, reaching out. The facts are, though, is that we will all have an interpretation of what we believe someone feels about themselves.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
someone goes, well, what's wrong with them? And you just, oh, they're insecure. Oh, they have a big ego. You're like, okay, so does that mean that they're unhealthy or healthy?
I just like circling back to like what you were saying is like, how do we trust ourselves even more? Um, some people want to know to measure how do I know if I trust myself? And it's the same thing about loving yourself. How do you know if you love yourself? It's think of someone that you trust. Who do you trust? And what do you do to show that you trust them?
Mm,
Are you giving yourself that same? Are you giving it back to yourself the same?
yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
it's we'll give a pass to other people.
Right. Yes.
We really will. And we'll even put it in the forgiveness factor way before we'll give it back to ourselves. And it's like, okay, right? I mean, it's like a boomerang. When you throw it, it doesn't just hit its target, it
Right
comes
back.
back to you. So, and if you're not ready for it, it can be deadly.
Right.
Judgment is the same way. Yet, how many times have we judged ourselves and it has not been productive? Or self-criticism, and I go, there's
Very
a
critical.
right. There's a difference between measuring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know it's hot outside? Well, because if you're sitting there and I don't even have a thermometer, yet I'm burning, I'm sweating, and I'm uncomfortable, I can probably extrapolate that it's hot. Fair assessment. That doesn't mean it's life-threatening. It doesn't mean I'm roasting. It means in that moment, because why? You can find shade under a tree, and are you still hot? This is where the resourcefulness factor starts to come into play. Because I go, okay, you can either say, I have a huge temper. What does that mean?
Right.
Are you presupposing that if someone says something or you get triggered, that you're automatically going to have a response and people are going to regret it, including you? So, why is that important to note? Well, if we know that we have these trip points or trigger points, can we create strategies around them? To your point, Veenu, where we're measuring and having these lists of like going, I know the things that drive me nuts. But here's a bigger question. Do you know why? Do you know what the meaning is that you've attached to it? And is that even really real?
And that's where it comes understanding like what again is trust. And and also looking at what does that do for you, the quality of your life when you learn to trust yourself?
Oh, so let's ask this question. Do you think that your tensions are higher or lower when you trust yourself?
Much
That
higher.
you
Your did you say tension?
Yeah. So if I say you trust yourself to make a decision, so when you make the decision in a place of trust, is your tension higher or lower?
Well, the stress tension is lower because I'm
Yes.
trusting myself. But
Yeah.
the tension to attract what I want, I think, is higher. The frequency,
It,
the energy.
and it could be absolutely, and that is because, well, let me rephrase that. Yes, and because you are already at a lower frequency, and so what's it going to take to raise that frequency? See, it's not a matter of are we stuck there. We can acknowledge it.
Right.
The difference is, can we shift past it? Can we move past this level of discomfort where we're going, you know what, this really doesn't feel good. I'm not hyped about sticking here, staying here. This does nothing for me. It does nothing for the other people around me. So why do I perpetuate this? And the answer is, I don't know.
Well, the other thing is that this really hurts relationships too, because a lot of people, not everyone, a handful, I don't know, that I know that don't trust people, they don't trust themselves.
And
And
that's
so
the truth.
what does that do to relationships?
Well,
You want a relationship, and I ask, well, what happened? And it's like, well, I just didn't trust him, and why didn't you? He's giving you reason not to trust him. Well, no, but in the past, I had relationships and they cheated on me. Well, so are you not trusting you that you didn't make a great decision again in choosing this guy? Or
was it an identity or energy that you were promoting, emoting, that you were attracting those types of people? And are you still living in that space?
right.
It,
So
it's,
it's when you trust yourself to make a better decision,
yes.
then it will ripple effect in your relationships with other people to trust them.
Well,
And vice versa.
we see in others what we actually feel in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's insecurity, the easiest way for us to level insecurity is to emote it onto someone else. And it's like, oh, wait, what? You're going, yes, it's a sticky factor. When your energy drops, are you attracting the connection, love, light, and beauty in your relationship? And I go, no. What you're attracting is doubt and conspiracy theory, to your point earlier in our conversation of, oh, well, what if they really aren't happy with me? What if they really, really are stuck in an old identity, as Rodolfo is mentioning? Is it a behavior? And it's like, wow. Well, we know that you are not your behavior. So let's just say that that's not your identity. However, where you be living in your identity will actually promote other people's behavior, because now they don't feel safe.
Well, I also would like to add to that, the identity you choose to be in that moment creates that behavior that you portray to other people to see you a certain way as well.
And that's your reality at that moment.
Correct.
100%, my friend. Great catch. Great catch. So when we find ourselves in this thick mud, it's like, how do you get yourself out? And I'm reminded that we're only limited by our unwillingness to get unstuck. Because people are like, going, wait, if you're in quicksand, what's the fastest way to go deeper in quicksand?
Which stay where you're at.
That's it. And you'll sink faster if you do what?
Try to reach out.
If you start flailing.
I'm just going by what I saw on Gilligan's Island back in the day.
I know. The skipper, I just saw the hat and the vine was hanging down and the gorilla was hanging off to the side laughing, eating bananas.
I was like, well, let me answer these questions. Let me go back to my Gilligan Island day when I would watch it.
We just outed each other's age, so we love you all. Just remember that. A more modern version of that would be Phineas and Ferb or South Park. But I don't know what Kenny would do. I think they just let everyone perish. So the point in being is that when we start to flail, you start to sink faster, because now all we're doing in that moment is reacting.
Right.
So in all behavioral patterns, when we start to get triggered, it is uber important to do three things. First, slow down. Just slow the heck down. While you're slowing down, breathe. And the third one is to get out of your head and just bring the attention to that heart center. Because this is where your EKG and EEG will go into sinus rhythm together. You'll actually be synchronous in your movement rather than fighting each other, because this is where the mind's going a million miles a minute and the heart's pumping, and I guarantee you you're completely out of sync, and that is called panic. That is called absolute judgment. That is called reaction to a stimulus that is not serving you.
Right.
And so often, Veenu, that's the first thing that you and I go to this. It's a default. We're like, hey, let's go, just breathe. Have you had some water? Just slow down, because you're breathing really fast right now. Let's slow that heart rate down just a little bit.
And it's a survivor mechanism. So the moment that your breath is going up, you're in survival mode. You're going to grasp at straws, anything you can to get out of that quicksand. And what it's doing is it's putting you more down. But when you stop, you think, you breathe, you're able to respond.
Yes.
Get you out of survival mode and get you in thriving mode.
And there's a misconception. People think that when the heart rate goes up, that their energy is going up. And I go, no, your presence and energy are dropping. It's inverse. That's why you get so exhausted so fast, because there's nothing filling you back up. So your tank is losing gas and you're burning fuel like nobody's business. Slowing down creates this equilibrium. So now we can go ahead and jog together. We can flow together. We can connect together. And it's amazing to see, and we see this in babies, right? Like if a baby is absolutely ticked off to the nth degree, they will be screaming and no noise is coming out. But they're blue in the face. They're not even breathing, but they're. And then when they finally do breathe, what is it? You know, you're like, going, okay. And it's like a release. And you're like, oh, whew, okay, at least they're breathing again.
So you're not even worried about why they're crying. You're just glad that they're breathing.
You're just like, okay, lips aren't blue. Eyes aren't rolling in the back of their head. And you're like, it's okay. So you went from being upset, perturbed to
Grateful.
Concerned and grateful.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, how did that happen? It's like, because conditions changed.
Right.
See, primordially, we are triggered by all these nuances around us. And we are so much more aware of energy, positive, negative, even neutral. Like, I actually believe that when people are neutral and indifferent, that can be so much more taxing, because at least when they're amped and happy and high, there's an energy exchange. When they're perturbed and angry and low, there's still an energy exchange. But when someone's just like, ooh, you're like, oh, they're flatline.
Yeah.
You know, I can't get a read. I mean, you almost want to put a mirror up to them and go, yeah, they're still breathing. Their eyes are open. I saw them blink. I saw them blink. You saw them blink too. But why do I go there? Because if you don't have an inner exchange, because again, we're addicted to energy. Some people have conflicts just so that they can feel connected.
So I love these tangents we go off. Our listeners are probably like, yep, here we go again.
They're definitely like, we know which one's ADHD.
Just to circle back around, when you're building relationships and you're looking at, do I trust them? Ask yourself, do I trust me? Do I trust me to make the right choices? Do I trust me in the situation? And because there's that reflection. Yes. It's that reflection on how your relationships are affected by it too. Because one of the core things, like people have said this, and I've coached relationships, you've coached relationships. Without the foundation of trust, yes, love is not going to be enough.
Definitely.
It's not. Love is not going to pull you through when you have no trust.
Tina Turner made a whole song about it.
What's love got to do with it?
And it's a secondhand emotion.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, wait, whoa. Those are fighting words, Chuck. I said, I get it.
But it really comes down to that foundation of trust. Do I trust you're going to keep me safe? Do I trust that you're going to be there for me? Do you trust yourself is going to keep you safe? And you're going to are you showing up for yourself the way you would show up for someone else?
Veenu, how many people have you met that they go, figures I'd be in another relationship like this?
Oh, so many.
Because this is just who I attract in my life.
And they're right.
And they are right. This is the follow-up line, right? I'm just destined to be this way because this is who I am. And I'm like, wait, what? So you're more comfortable being alone or being in one-night stands or giving all of you all in all at one moment? Because you're like, oh, and people will say this, that I'm an all-in kind of person. I'm an all-in kind of guy. I'm an all-in kind of gal. And I'm like, oh, no. You just met this person.
Trust. How are you building trust?
Well,
they'll sacrifice that, though. They'll sacrifice that for the connection. And then they get in and then they're realizing like, oh, I don't even trust this person.
Well, this is the one that gets me. You like tacos too? Oh my gosh. Who would have known? You like Dos Equis? Really? You like Uggs? Oh, not just Uggs. Oh my, are you kidding me? You like Crocs too. I'm addicted to Crocs.
Let's move in together.
Yeah, it's like, good. Let's make a baby. You're like, wait, what? Like, what? And this is the craziness. Here's the bigger one now. You're a liberal too, aren't you? I could tell. I felt it the minute we connected. Yeah, or hey, MAGA. It's like, and I'm like, what, do you have matching tattoos on your right butt cheeks? Like, what are you doing? Who are you people? And then I'm reminded, I go, it's no different than becoming a gang member. It's no different than being in a biker club. It's no different than being in the Young Presidents Association or the Billionaires Boys Club or going to events or anything else. And here's the difference. When you consistently go to them and you're expecting a different experience, and this is the part that cracks me up. I go, was it really a different experience? Or was it the same experience and you got your fill of connection with other people that you perceive as being like-minded, not necessarily like-hearted? Yep. Thank you, Rodolfo. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rudy, that is right on. Secondary emotion brings a secondary gain. How to meet and satisfy secondary gain. And that is so it. That, like, he nailed it. That is it that people do. And they forget, again, the foundation of that trust.
And I would offer that it can actually be someone's heavily primary emotion that hasn't been serving them that creates the enforcement of the secondary gain. Because what happens is that means that they feel secondary gain when they feel even more comfortable with the primary experiences that they've had. And even though they know it doesn't serve them, they dismiss it. And they dismiss it for one reason. It meets a higher level of need in their certainty, their variety, their significance, potentially their love and connection, because they're really connected with self and the other people who see themselves in the same light. And irrespective, and all of a sudden I go, you know what, to change, it might feel better initially, but I wouldn't feel anywhere near as full or connected as I am with my community. And it's like, wow. So, Veenu, what would force someone to move away from that primary emotion so that way they're not so stuck in secondary gain, and give them the ability to pivot?
Knowing what their truth is.
Beautiful. And that is the secret sauce. Unadulterated honesty with self. Not placating.
If you don't like it, then you don't like it. Own it that you don't like it. If you love it, own that you love it. And just own it and not have to change. And I always think about, like, food. I do not like seafood. I don't like the smell. I don't like the texture. I don't like the taste. There's nothing about seafood. If it's under the water, I do not like it. And my husband loves it. My first husband loved it. And I would make him go in the garage to eat his seafood because I did not like the smell. And, you know, they probably had other girlfriends or wives or whatever that didn't like it, but they probably never made them go into the, like, I would literally sit at a different table if they ordered seafood, like my first husband. But that was me being honest. Like, I wasn't going to try to pretend to be something else for him to like me.
Right.
That was not going to be that. But by the way, so everybody knows, over the years, I'm okay with the smell now. It's good. Brian can eat seafood in the kitchen.
In terms of hypnosis, no, I mean, so, and don't worry, our next session is on phobia cures.
Right.
So no, and to the point, it's not that you have a fear of it, you just honestly don't like it. And so here's the other part of this. The authenticity is part of where we start to have this discussion of, I honor you, and you authentically, this is something that you find off-putting.
Right.
And you go, okay, so why then would you impose that on someone else?
Right.
And it's like, you know, someone said, well, do you find something offensive? And I said, I don't know if I find it offensive, but you're not going to find Chuck Hogan in a mankini anytime soon. And I'm just putting it out there. Now, hey, listen.
I need to do a swish real quick.
That's okay. And so why do I go there? I said,
I don't know, Chuck. Why did you go there?
Because there are some people, and in some cultures, that's perfectly fine, and that's
I get it.
Right? So if you're in the south of France and you're wearing like long jams that you'd be as a surfer in Hawaii, people are probably like going, "Oh, he's so conservative. He's so, what's wrong with him? Does he have so?" And it's like, that's fine. But for other people, I'm like, I'm not interested in wearing a doily and calling it a swim, garment. And we all have different definitions and things that are acceptable.
This is
In
where I'm going to say, stay true to you, Chuck. Stay true, buddy.
that, and I'm cool with that. I was reminded that we've been watching the movie, the series Shogun, and it's so cool because they're actually talking about how they drink and how so like it's polite in Japanese culture to slurp when
Mm-hmm.
you're like drinking even sake. And oh, me with my Brazilian speedos.
Thanks, Rudy. I'm going to definitely do a swish after this.
I appreciate you, Rudy, and never happened on my watch. So no offense, no jacuzzi parties at my place. So here's the deal. So it's slurping your food, but if you were in European culture,
Right.
lifting your bowl to your mouth or sipping your sake, they're like, oh, you wouldn't do that with a wine. You hold your glass. And it's like, okay, so there are cultural shifts as well that are ingrained in our ideologies too. This means that you get to be, to your point, Veenu, we can actually be resourceful in adopting someone else's culture or customs in a moment. That doesn't mean that we're going against who we are.
Right.
So there's a difference.
But that's also true from the way you're raised. Like, I agree with you that your kids' values don't have to necessarily match with yours.
Yes.
They start out, though. They do start out because that's the only influence they have when they're a baby, 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, until they start getting the other world, right? And so there is a foundation of the values that we install in our children.
Right.
And, like with you, your mom was Japanese. My family's full Indian. And so we had a culture.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things, like even now with my kids, it's difficult at my mom's because my mom is still, her home's still very, even though it's westernized, it's still Indian culture. There's a lot of the stuff. And my kids are like, I don't understand why she's so strict. I said, that is part of our culture. That, to my mom, that's her definition of respect.
Yes.
And we're there. So we're going to do what she does. That's not being true to yourself, my double negative. It is respecting that you're in someone else's house and to, have that respect.
Yes. And to your point, it's not going against a value system. It's actually sharing in the culture and value systems, which is beautiful too. So if we boil this down, motive and intention have a big part to this. Huge. Because are we trying to impress? Are we trying to be, or are we just being? Because I'm going to say it for the billionth and first time, you can be doing your best, but never being your best. When you be your best, you will always do your best. So that doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean being influential. It doesn't mean anything other than knowing in your body, mind, and spirit that you're a good soul, you're kind, you're giving, and you are going to bring you as an opportunity without filters.
I love what you always say, and this has been your saying since I've known you for over a decade, is be you, boo-boo. Be you. I mean, and it really takes out of the judgment then, right? When you can just accept someone for being them.
Yes.
And I always tell my kids, you don't have to like everyone. You don't even have to like me, but you need to respect everyone, and you need to respect me.
Key. Thank you. I mean, on that, literally, it's so trusting yourself is self-respect. Mm-hmm. It's respect of others. It's respect of culture. It's literally, and I'll close it from my end. It's being grateful for the experiences that you get to share it.
100%, 100%. And just remember to continue to build your own trust in you, because what it does, it builds your trust in other people as well. And it's all linked to self-love and self-worth. But trust is definitely a foundation, a primary foundation of who you are and who you see in other people.
And you'll find that you create more space for yourself and for others. So now there's breathing room.
So be yourself.
You're not broken. No need to fix it.
It's been a great time. Thank you guys for tuning in and all your commentary, Rudy. Thank you. Thank you. And Emily, we appreciate you all. You guys can find us on social media. Our handles I was trying to think what they're called. Our handles are on here, but you can find me at Veenu Inspires and Chuck at YBL Now.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
You for joining us on this episode of Live Now with Veenu Keller and Chuck Hogan. Follow us on Instagram at Veenu Inspires and at Chuck Hogan Now. For more about Veenu, please visit VeenuInspires.com. And for Chuck, please check out YBLNow.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.